For those of you who I have not met, my name is Michael Smith. Oh, you want to? Oh, you want? Go ahead, introduce me. I want to hear how you do it. Yeah.
All right, I don't have a microphone actually.
Do you want to hear? Do you want to talk into my chest?
Yeah, that's romantic. Oh, yeah.
It's the most action I've gotten all weekend. This is great. Just kidding.
So everyone, during my time as an athlete rep, one of the problems that kept coming up over and over again is teammates asking me to help them out with disputes. And that's what we're going to be discussing this afternoon. We have Mike Smith, former president of Athletes Can, former wrestling athlete, to guide us through it. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Yeah. You guys want to? Is there another chair? No, not that one. That one's mine. Try that one. Yeah. Take that chair. Yeah, there's one right behind you there. Right behind the... Right there. It's okay. While they're sorting out the whole chair situation, this is Sports Solution. Let's see if they can find a solution to find themselves a seat. Oh, look at that. Perfect. Thank you very much. So we're supposed to be on from what, 12:45 to where's my time? 12:45 to what? 3 o'clock? Yeah. No. All right. So now we have about an hour and a half to share with you some information about Sports Solution, what they do, what they're all about, and also about the Sport Dispute Resolution Center of Canada. And behind me, well, Sports Solution will come on and tell you what they do, but beside Sports Solution guys are Marie-Claude and Roger. Marie-Claude works for the Sport Dispute Resolution Center, and by the way, I should probably say that I'm a board member with the Sport Dispute Resolution Center, and Roger's one of the arbitrator mediators that work with us. And so this afternoon, what we hope to do within the hour and 15 minutes that we have is to give you some pretty essential information, give you some sense about how the process works, so the arbitration and mediation, how that process works, how it unfolds, and really much more about how you can take it back to your teammates and help them if they do, heaven forbid, run into some kind of dispute. At least you'll have the knowledge for that. So I know, I said it's an hour and 15 minutes, and I know you've just finished lunch, and you probably want to relax, put your feet up, maybe watch some TV, but this is not the time for you to zone out. It really isn't. Because the information that these individuals will share with you is very important. So I'll be watching, we'll be asking some questions. We hope to make it somewhat engaging so you don't fall asleep. The last thing I'll ask of you is, I know people are kind of moving towards the back, but look at all the space up here. So let's see some people, let's see who the leaders are in the room. Yeah. Brent, thank you very much. Yeah. Ruben. Yeah. Perfect. Table over here. Georgina, I know you're a bit of a leader. Yeah. You're not a follower, but follow us. All right. Come on up. Don't be shy. Are you ready? Do you want to? All right, I'll let you do your thing.
Presentation teed up. Yep. Yep. Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead and skip one right now. Good afternoon, everyone. As I'm sure most of you have already met Dan and I, but anyways, my name is John Barnett, and this is Dan Strickland, and we are the Sports Solution Program Managers. Sports Solution is a program of Athletes Can that is committed to helping athletes like yourselves find solutions to a wide range of sport-related issues. We provide assistance to athletes such as yourselves in resolving sport disputes, and we offer support throughout a dispute resolution process. We also offer guidance on how to avoid conflict and understand the fair administration of sport. And we are a free service to all members of Athletes Can.
Thanks, John. I'm just going to talk a little bit about the history of the program. It was established back in 1996, and it's the only program of its kind in North America. It was originally created in partnership with the Faculty of Law at Western and the Dispute Resolution Center for Sports and Law. The goal was to create a non-for-profit program to help high-performance Canadian amateur athletes resolve their legal issues in sport. The issues we deal with mainly are team selection, if you are cut from a team, funding and carding, if you lose your funding, discipline issues, harassment issues, other sports-related issues. It could be doping or otherwise. So there's just the two of us program managers. We work on a 2-year contract, so there's always somebody here. John's in 2nd year, I'm in 3rd year law. We'll be hiring a new student to take over my role in January. We report directly to the Executive Director of Athletes Canada. I think that's next.
So in a recent survey, they did a review of the Sports Solution program, and these are some of the quotes that we got feedback. So like, we're taught that it's just a part of our sport, and if we can't handle it, then the sport isn't for you. Or, I mainly accepted the way it was, and did not want to be blacklisted in my sport. Or, the NSO was God. Whatever happened to me came from them without a vehicle for us to question them. These remarks are far too common, but they're incorrect. You do have rights, and we are here to help you realize that. Not every decision made by an NSO is perfect, and in accordance with established policies and procedures, nor are those policies and procedures well established. Sometimes you have been treated unfairly, and you deserve to have your case heard. The Sports Solution was created with this in mind, and we are here to empower athletes. We help by providing assistance and guidance with issues and disputes, supporting athletes throughout the dispute resolution process. We also increase athlete awareness of the issues that affect you, and offer ideas as to how athletes can improve the administration of their own careers.
So I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of the common issues we see in sport. The first one would be carding. It's because it's the most common issue we face when we're contacted by athletes. Often it's related to procedural errors in the nomination process. So we'd like to see you guys taking a more proactive role in reading your selection criteria very carefully and be aware of the deadlines. Lots of times there's deadlines the NSOs have to meet for the selection criteria, and if they don't do it in time, there's automatically you can appeal based on that. And so just be aware of when these dates have to be met, and that could be an easy way for you to appeal a decision. Team selection, that's probably our second most common questions come from when you're not selected, and although you feel like you should have. We hear a lot about these cases, but usually it's when we're contacted, it's too late. The common grounds for the appeal are the basis for which the subjective decisions were made or inappropriately applied selection criteria. These types of appeals need to be handled very quickly if we want to get you on the team, and because there's often deadlines for flights and that kind of stuff. With athlete agreements, they're required to be signed for AAP funding. It formalizes the relationship between the athlete and your NSO. And it also provides an avenue of recourse if rights, privileges, and obligations are not respected or enforced. Often in your athlete agreement, you'll also be signing away some commercial rights with your use of your image in sport, that kind of thing. You should be reading these clauses very carefully and know what kind of obligations you have. Sometimes these are like, what do you have to wear in competitions, how you behave at competitions, that kind of thing. And don't be scared to ask questions if you're not confused. Contact us if you see any clauses you're not sure what you're signing. Just give us a quick call. We can help you explain what they are, if you should be signing or not. As for anti-doping issues, the CADP is administered by CCES, and this SDRCC is charged with conducting the hearings for doping. Generally, if you've been accused of an anti-doping rule violation, we recommend that you obtain legal representation, but we can help you evaluate the merits of this. So if you contact us first, we'll let you know if we think you should be getting a lawyer or not. Sometimes we can help you out, but oftentimes, especially if it involves criminal doping, that you'll have to get a real lawyer. Maybe next year. Okay. And other issues. There's always problems when with communicating between NSO. Sometimes just getting us to talk to your NSO for you kind of gives them a kick, and other issues are of endorsement contracts, insurance policies and benefit entitlements, athlete trusts, and any other sport-related issues. We can help you with all of that. It's not just carding, not just team selection. We can help you with tax issues. Example, like you guys are all eligible to put money in. It's a new legislation enacted last year, the Amateur Athletic Trust. If you wanna, you can save you lots of money in taxes because you're not taxed until you actually take the money out. So if you want some advice on that stuff, just give us a call. We're always happy to help.
So I'm just going to walk you through a typical sports solution case. So what's going to happen is an athlete such as yourselves is going to contact us via a phone message or an email. And then you're going to be communicating with either Dan or myself or whoever the active program managers are at that time. And then we're just going to try and discuss the issue with you, find out all the facts of your case, ask a lot of probing questions, and try and get a good idea of what actually is going on. And then we'll send you back an email summarizing everything just to confirm that we do have the facts correct. This stage is very helpful. It would be very helpful if you had all the information already relevant and pulled, such as like a copy of your athlete agreement, email transcripts between you and your NSO, and notes of any important phone conversations. It just makes the whole process a lot smoother and allows us to conduct our research better. And then we're going to look at your options. So after initial discussion, we're going to go to the athlete policies. We're going to go to past cases, and we're going to research your issue. And then we're going to come back with you and give you your options, which is more or less, should you appeal your card or not? And then we're going to lay out the benefits and costs of doing each one. If you're worried about your reputation and issues about being blacklisted, we're going to highlight more or less what we think would be the implications of deciding to appeal your decision or not. And then we're going to leave it up to you to make your decision. If you want to go forth at that point in time, we're more than happy to help. So that would be, at that point in time, we either make a decision to draft a letter or launch a formal appeal. And we won't actually write the appeal for you, but we will help you. We will give you all the information that we think that you should include, as well as we will help with editing, providing feedback to you, and then we're going to do our best to appeal you, to prepare you for the appeal process. There is often the internal appeal process with your NSO. That will be the first step of your appeal. And then we're going to look at the policy and we're going to give you feedback on how that's going to work. Some NSOs don't have very cement or concrete appeal policies, and they're going to tell you to appeal right away to the SDRCC just so that they can help resolve the issue faster. And that process is very well explained on the SDRCC website, but we're going to tell you, we're going to provide you with information about that process as well. And then during the whole appeal process, it's nice just to have a backboard to talk about, and that's what we're there for. So you can talk to us about the issues. You can tell us how you're feeling about it. A lot of athletes get very discouraged when they're in an appeal process because they feel like the whole world's against them. And we're here to tell you that they're not, and that there's lots of people there supporting you and trying to get you to that decision, and that you are often in the right, and you need to make sure that you have the strength and the determination to get through that point in time. So I just wanted to give you guys a little heads up on how you can help yourselves. And this involves keeping detailed records, because even the best athletes have had their run-ins with an unfair decision. And it's not best to take chances, and you need to be prepared for the worst-case scenario. So I just want you to keep these next few tips in mind over the course of the next couple of years during your career. So this involves keeping detailed records. So save and take note of all the correspondence from your NSO. And also record your interpretation of these correspondences. Take note of important dates, such as when your carding criteria and selection criteria are supposed to be published, and then mark them on a calendar, so that way you can keep up on those things. Then file all this information away systematically, so it's easy to access it when you need to, right? and then periodically go back to this file and review it and just purge unnecessary information because you don't want to have too much of a backlog. Also, know your rights and responsibilities. So read and review your carding and selection criteria and ensure you meet the minimum requirements, such as making sure you hit those 5 World Cup events that you're supposed to do. Understand your responsibilities under the NSO and major events policies, because a lot of NSOs are now creating code of conducts, and something as simple as missing your curfew could end up getting you a 3-month sanction. Also know your responsibilities under the CADP, such as your whereabouts and therapeutic use exemptions. These have all just been modified recently, so some of you might see some changes in terms of, do you guys know what a therapeutic use exemption is? So it's going to be 2 groupings now. So you need to make sure that if you fall into the top grouping, you need to have all your therapeutic use exemptions formalized before you actually go to competitions. Whereas before, some of you could have done it with a medical review process. That all the information is available on the CSIS webpage and readily accessible. But if you want more information, you can contact us and we can go through your scenario and see where you fall into that. And the third tip I want to tell you is to stay informed. Athletes Can publishes a quarterly newsletter that you all get, but we find that a lot of people aren't reading all this information. And it's good to go through all that and just to stay up on it. Also, CSIS publishes sporting news updates daily. And I'm not sure how many of you are subscribing to it, but it's a great resource. I read it every day, and you'd be amazed how much is going on all over the world all the time. CCES, sorry. Yeah, not the spooks. Anyways, here we go.
Okay, so we're just wrapping up now. So when should you call? As soon as possible. Try to anticipate problems ahead of time. A lot of times we can help you before you get cut from a team. If you see there's a problem in the selection criteria, just give us a call. An email from us or from you guys to your NSO might fix the problem before anything ever actually happens. And for our contact details, our toll-free number is 1-888-434-8883, or you can reach through email at sportsolution@athletescan.com. We're based in London, and there's only one team I think that trains there, the rowing team, so we can't really meet in person. And because John and I we're busy with class and stuff, sometimes we won't be in the office. Phone call might not get back an immediate response, but if you email us, we'll get back to you as soon as we can. And I think that's it. Unless there's any questions? Yep.
Yeah, with your athlete agreement, I can't remember exactly, but the criteria needs to be published a month before, like a year before, is when they're supposed to have the carding criteria out to you. And they need to have their nominations to Sport Canada 2 months before, and then they need to get you to sign within a month after the beginning of your carding cycle. So, but you should have the athlete agreement as soon as the nominations are going to be sent to Sport Canada. So a month before the carding cycle starts. And if they're not giving you them that early, you get on the horn or give us a call, and we will. And you should just push them. You got to push back pretty hard, because you know how bureaucracies can work, right? Yeah, call us, and we can contact Sport Canada, and Sport Canada will they push pretty hard. Yeah, I'd have to look into give you exact numbers, but they need to give you that in advance. And I can't remember the exact dates right now off the top of my head, but I can look it up for you and get back to you if you'd like.
Anything else?
A question for you, Theo. If your federation has an additional appeal policy, can you still go to the SDRCC first?
You're supposed to exhaust the internal appeal policy first before you go to the SDRCC. And most of the internal appeal policies are pretty quick, but yeah, you need to exhaust your internal appeal process before you can appeal to the SDRCC, unless there are some sort of extenuating circumstances that won't allow you to do that. Like,
There's no policy.
Yeah, you have a microphone. Just turn on your mic.
I was going to address that a little later on, but the internal appeal process of the NSO has to be exhausted, and in order to be exhausted, you either have to go through it all, or that the Federation refuses to provide you with the service on the basis that they think you have no grounds. So that would mean if the process is exhausted, then you can come to SDRCC. And the other way is that the NSO would be, for some reasons, because of strict timelines or a lack of resources internally, they may say, why don't we both take this to the SDRCC directly, and they would waive it. So those are the three ways that you can come to SDRCC.
Extenuating circumstances. Is any other questions?
I'm going to ask, maybe you can hold Tom, sorry, if you can hold the question, because we're on a bit of a time constraint. And my guess is that a lot of the information or questions you have will come through the presentation portion with Marie-Claude and with Roger. So I'm going to thank John and Dan for that. And these guys you're not lawyers, right?
Not yet.
Okay, lawyers in the making.
Yeah.
And because of that, you can't go with the actual athletes and argue their cases, correct? And that's something that athletes often get confused with Sports Solution. They can only take you so far, but it's a great resource rather.
A lot of time we are the ones prepping the lawyers that you ask, so we have a special knowledge of the sport. So yeah, just contact us as soon as possible, and we'll get the ball rolling for you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, guys. Now, I'm happy to introduce again, rather, Marie-Claude and Roger, but I'll give them just a bit of an introduction in terms of what's happening next. I came from Athletes Canada, left officially in 2007, and had applied to the Sport Dispute Resolution Centre of Canada board. And my day job as a lawyer, and I wanted to be on this board because friends were coming to me, and athletes were coming and saying, I have this dispute, I want to help, I want to go to SCRC, but it's not unfair, but it's too difficult. A lot of problems athletes were having, so I thought, wow, what a great idea for me to get on this board. I can work from within. And so in May of last year, I think it was in 2009, I was appointed by Minister Lund to the actual board. And then in November, I went to my first SDRCC conference where they have the mediators and arbitrators. And I almost wish I could take all the athletes with me so they can see what it's like. But imagine being in a room with the judges, because then you get to figure out how they make their decisions, right? And that would make you better prepare to argue your case. So I thought it would be a wonderful idea if SERCC could come to this forum and share some of that information with you, so you all have a better idea of how the process works and how the arbitrators or mediators think, depending on what channel you actually select. So without further ado, I'll pass it over to Marie-Claude and to Roger. And you can clap for them too.
Thank you. Okay, so is my mic? Yeah, thank you very much. You're good. All right. Roger and I are both bilingual, and we can answer questions in French if you choose to ask us questions. Alors en français, vous pouvez nous poser des questions dans votre langue maternelle si vous voulez. On va les répondre en français, mais la présentation va se faire en anglais de façon prédominante. Mais ça va me faire un plaisir de répondre à vos questions. So what we'll do here today, we'll try to engage you, because we know you had a late night, and you had a heavy lunch, and now we have to keep you awake for an hour. So we'll make sure to do that. I'm just going to go very, very quickly over. I know that a lot of you are new to Athletes Can, and this information about SDRCC may also be new to you, except for those who came to see me at our table over the past 24 hours. So what we'll do is a quick introduction by me. Roger's going to take over with some information on some of the services that SDRCC provides. And then we're going to go into an exercise of filling out forms for SDRCC, and you have some blank forms on your table there, and we'll go through that. So the SDRCC is a not-for-profit organization. We're funded 100% by Sport Canada. Our head office is in Montreal, and we actually offer prevention and resolution services for the dispute. So we do have a lot of our operations are actually geared at trying to prevent. And prevent meaning we educate you about how to act responsibly as an athlete so that you don't get in trouble. And some of the stuff that Sports Solution was talking about earlier was, make sure you read your agreements before you sign them. You know what you're getting into. You know your policies. You know when you're supposed to do things so that you don't get in trouble. We do also a lot of prevention with the national sport organizations, and we try to teach them about good management practices and fairness in the boardroom, etc. So we offer our services at the national level, so we only deal with issues that concern national team athletes and around those programs. So if it's an issue between an athlete and a provincial federation, we're not covered. We offer services in both official languages, so our arbitrators and mediators, they're not all bilingual, but we have sufficient on our roster to meet all your needs that way. We have four full-time employees in the office in Montreal, but we rely on 44 professional mediators, arbitrators. These people have private practice in that area. They do commercial arbitrations and all sorts of other things. That's their livelihood. They're professionals at it. They're expert at it. And what we do is we bring them in on a case-by-case basis to help with your issues. So there's 44 of them. They're located across the country. And as mentioned before, they can service in both official languages. And our volunteer board, Mike just talked about it. It's appointed by the minister, the sport minister, and we have 12 people. And there's a representation of athletes, coaches, and NSO representatives. And we have members of the legal community also. And arbitration in ADR, which we'll talk about soon. Some of those dispute prevention initiatives that we have some of the documents we have on when you walk out of the room, or you can pick up copies on the way out. Newsletters and case decisions are on our website. You can actually view and read the decisions that were rendered by previous arbitrators in other cases, so that gives you a sense of how you stand with your case. We do conferences and workshops like today, and we have an interactive mediation game on our website. If you want to try it out, you actually are put in a role of a mediator trying to solve an issue over a disciplinary sanction, and you actually have a choice of hitting certain buttons to try to solve the situation. It's very humorous, it's very funny, and you can do that in French or in English. So I'm going to skip that because Roger's going to go into more details. Just to give you an idea what the type of cases we do, you have statistics from 2009, 2010, and we did 38 cases. 16 of them were non-doping, so selection, carding, discipline issues. And we actually solved half of our cases last year through mediated settlement. So both parties ended up walking out of the room with a satisfactory settlement, and they were happy with it. In an arbitration, as you'll find out later on, you either win or you lose. So we like to have people settle because they're both winners in the process. We have some doping cases also. You're going to see on the right-hand side of this that we have been handling double our caseload this year. We are halfway through this fiscal year, and we've done more cases than we have done in 12 months last year. So it doesn't bode well on our dispute prevention. We like to think it's because we also promote our services and more athletes are aware that they have rights and they come to us with it. But we're hopeful that it's going to go down with time because people will learn how to actually prevent their disputes. Some of the breakdowns also in statistics on the type of disputes that we hear. This was from last year, 10 on selection eligibility, 22 on doping, 3 on carding. We have more on carding this year, but I didn't put the statistics on. You had a homework to do before you came here about your internal appeal policy, and really we're not going to go into much details about that policy here, but we wanted to make sure that all of you knew where to find the policy, what timelines applied to you if you or your colleagues in your sport had to appeal a decision of your NSO, if you had time limits also to come to the SDRCC, and so on. So just a show of hand, how many people had trouble finding the internal appeal policy for their NSO? That's pretty good, actually. Or how many of you did not look for it? All right. How many of you feel that it's well explained in the policy what you would need to do if you have an appeal? Okay, well, it's not bad. I think federations are learning. Those who have problems with the way the policy is written, or you feel that the timelines are too short and they're unfair, You can raise it with them. You can give us a call. Sometimes we have good relationships with people in the national sport organizations, and we can give them a call and say, look, maybe 3 days to launch an appeal when you just received the decision is a bit short. Is there a reason why? And then we can negotiate with them and see if they can make this more realistic for you. All right. Two recent initiatives that we launched was actually the Pro Bono program. It's that sheet on my table outside. We're very proud of it. We've been working on this for several months now. We have actually recruited volunteer lawyers who will assist unrepresented parties before SDRCC. So right up to the point where Sport Solutions is going to take you to the door of SDRCC with an appeal. Sport Solution can walk you through the process. Although they can't represent you, they can still walk you through. When you reach the SDRCC and Sport Solution cannot sit beside you to defend and speak on your behalf, we have this Pro Bono program that can kick in. And you go on our website, you look at the list of people. We have bilingual lawyers who are there, and we have, of course, English-speaking. And you can pick from them. You call them, pick from the list, you call them up, and you say, look, I have a case before SDRCC, and I would like assistance. Would you agree to help me out? And they will do this for free. And there's a limited range of service that they will offer, but you can negotiate that with them, and they are volunteer. Okay? So we're very proud of this. The case management page, I'm just not going to go into a lot of details, but those of you who will have cases with SDRCC in the near future will use an online, accessible, password-protected, highly secured, 24-hour access from anywhere in the world to your case file for the SDRCC. So all the material filed by the other parties or procedural orders sent by the arbitrators, anything relating to your case, your calendar of event, is going to be accessible online from anywhere. So if you happen to be traveling during a dispute that you're handling with us, you don't need to carry your laptop in your pocket to make sure you have access to your file when you need them. So we're looking forward to using that and launching that. I'm going to leave the floor to Roger because he's going to talk to you about the ADR spectrum.
Okay, folks, I just want to try and make this a little bit more real for you in the sense of helping you understand in very practical terms what the SDRCC does. And I think that if you want to get your brain around that, I'm going to get the chair around it first. If you want to get your brain around that, let's start with a very basic discussion. And I want to really make this a discussion with you. A discussion about the role of conflict in sport. And the way I'd like to start this discussion is to ask you a question. You know sport. You've all been involved in conflict. So let me ask you this. What do you think are the causes of conflict in sport? That's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to do. Yeah. Lack of communication. Yeah, that's a big one, isn't it? Other causes. They're uninformed. Other causes. Yeah.
Different priorities.
Different priorities, absolutely, right? Other causes. Ambiguous regulation. Absolutely. Other causes, yeah.
Many organizations leading to conflicts of interest.
So conflicts of interest?
But not by choice, like it's not that a coach is choosing to have a conflict of interest, it's almost on the organization. But yeah, conflict.
Okay, so conflict of interest, forced or not, conflict of interest. Okay, other causes. Yeah.
Terms of agreement, not adherence, but what's the word I'm trying to use for that? Violations of terms of agreement.
Violations of terms of agreement.
Good. We don't need to be here.
Okay. Any others?
Time. Lack of time.
Lack of time. In what sense?
Well, you win it in curling, you win the nationals, and they What is it?
Oh my God, what do I do, right?
Well, yeah, and you have that time to read it or
Okay, sure. Any other causes? Yeah.
lack of money, bad budgeting.
Bad budgeting. Any others? Yeah. Lack of respect. Yeah, people don't feel respected, and that causes conflict, right? One more. Language. Okay, yeah. People have different, they say one thing and somebody understands something different, right? Yeah. Yeah, yeah, okay. We could keep going, and I could keep going down this list, and I'm sure you've got lots of others, okay? But let me ask you this question. Is conflict always bad? Is there any good that can come from conflict? Change can come from conflict. Any other things? Better communication, a new policy maybe, right? Yeah, can you think of any important change in our history that has not come about through conflict? Conflict is normal. Conflict is a normal part of being human. It's not conflict that's bad. It's how people deal with conflict that can be good or bad. Now, I bet that when you face conflict, when you're involved in conflict, you want to respond in a constructive way, right? If Marie-Claude and I aren't agreeing on how we're going to do this presentation, and she, says, Roger, I'd like to talk to you about how we're going to do this presentation, and I get angry and I start screaming or something like that, that's not a constructive way of reacting to the situation. But if we talk about it and we find a better way of dividing up the work, that can be very positive. When you face conflict, I bet you try to react constructively. But when we do that, we come up to barriers that make it more difficult for us to do that. What are some of the barriers that we face when we're trying to react constructively to conflict? Frustration. How does that make it more difficult for us to react constructively?
Well, because you're trying to be logical and everything, but you have that, that little fire inside, and you're not really polite. And you have that tone in your voice that the other person know that you're still pissed off.
That fire in your belly, right? Yeah. Okay. Other things, other barriers. Yeah. Emotion. Yeah. People who are emotional tend not to do things that are good for themselves, right? They tend to do things that they regret. And that makes it more difficult. Yeah?
Short timelines.
Short timelines. Hey, yeah. Any others? Yeah.
History or grudges?
History, yeah.
Not expressing arguments clearly.
Yeah, people aren't clear. The whole communication thing. So, okay, we could keep going, and I know you got plenty of other great ideas, but I just want to stop there and just move it on. And you'll see I'll tie all of this together in a few minutes. Now, one of the ways that you can deal with conflict is you can go to court, right? You can hire a lawyer, go to court. Now, there are huge disadvantages to doing that. What are some of the disadvantages of going to court?
I can't think of any.
Hey, I used to be a lawyer too, right? Okay, what are some of the disadvantages? Yeah.
The time commitment.
In what sense?
It takes a lot of time to get through the whole process of everything.
Yeah, it could take a huge amount of time. Okay. Other disadvantages?
Financial loss.
Financial loss in what sense?
Spending money, time you spend doing that is time you're not spending making money, going out there, trying to get more sponsorship or training.
There's the whole cost, there's the opportunity cost, that sort of stuff, right? Okay, other disadvantages, yeah.
The relationship with the person afterwards, like if it's one of your teammates, which I don't really see why you would go to court.
Yeah.
It's one of your teammates, but if it happens, that could,
If you want to destroy a relationship, just sue somebody, right? Yeah, that'll do it. Trust me, it'll do it. Okay, any other disadvantages to going to court? Yeah.
Overall stress and emotional strain.
Huge stress, right? Any others? Yeah. Bad PR in what sense? They see your face. They think disagreement, right? Yeah, okay. Yeah, sure.
After all, you may not win.
Yeah, it's win-lose, right? There's going to be a winner, there's going to be a loser, and somebody's going to be on that losing end, right? And we could keep going with this list. But where I'm going with this is, you know, more and more people, and I used to practice law, and more and more lawyers, more and more other folks are looking at this, looking at conflict and saying, hey, you know what? We got to find a better way, right? And so the idea is, well, we want to try to avoid some of the disadvantages of going to court. And think of going to court and say to yourself, well, if you really believe that these are the causes to conflict, lack of communication, people being uninformed, ask yourself, is court really the solution to people, you know, being uninformed, a lack of communication, different priorities? I mean, court doesn't address all of this stuff, right? And court isn't terribly good at dealing with some of these barriers that exist to resolving conflict. So the idea is, of organizations like the SDRCC, is how can we do it better? How can we deal with conflict in a more constructive way? And when the SDRCC and other organizations like it think about that, a lot of people say, hey, you know, these folks, what they do is, you know, people are resolving this many conflicts, and the SDRCC is going to help people resolve this many. They're going to help them resolve more conflicts. And yeah, you know, organizations like the SDRCC does do that, but they do something much more important and fundamental. It's all about resolving conflict quicker, cheaper, better. What do I mean by that? 97% of lawsuits settle. You start a lawsuit tomorrow, or you get sued tomorrow, you can go, whoopee! There's a 97% chance that I'm going to settle this case. But you're not going to go whoopee, because there's all these disadvantages to litigation. There's all, and it's terrible at dealing with some of these causes, the barriers, those sorts of things. The trick with conflict is not to resolve more conflict. You know what? The Middle East is going to get resolved, I promise you. It's not whether it's going to get resolved, it's how much time it's going to take and how many resources it's going to eat up before it gets resolved. The trick is to resolve disputes quicker, in a more cost-effective way, and with better results for the people that are involved in it, you guys, right? So how do you do that? How do you do it quicker, cheaper, better? Well, when you go to the restaurant, you look at the menu and you say, hey, how am I going, you know, what am I going to eat? So let's do the same thing for this. If you look at the menu of dispute resolution, the things that you can do to resolve disputes, well, there's prevention, right? And Marie-Claude already started talking about that. There's negotiation, which is the technique that you use the most often at home with your colleagues, work, wherever. That's what you use the most often to try to resolve disputes. Then there's mediation, or what we sometimes call resolution facilitation. And all that is a fellow like me who's an expert on helping people negotiate more constructively and resolve disputes, helps people who are involved in conflict talk about the problem to try to find a solution. Okay? Then we'll just jump ahead here to arbitration. Arbitration is a process where a fella or a gal who has some expertise in the law hears each side's arguments and makes a decision, and that decision binds them. It's just like going to see a judge, except it's a little bit more informal. Now, you saw I skipped over Med-Arb. Med-Arb is just a mixing of mediation and arbitration. The way it starts off is The mediator arbitrator tries to help the parties resolve the dispute. If they're not able to resolve it, and they're not able to agree, then he takes or she takes that hat off, becomes an arbitrator, hears the arguments, and renders a decision. And as you go to the right here, you get things like, the SDRCC doesn't do this, administrative hearings. You've got administrative tribunals all over this country, municipal boards, those kinds of things that hear cases. And then you got the trial process. Okay, if tomorrow you have to be involved in a dispute, which end of this spectrum do you want to be involved in? The left, right? Most people say the left. Because the more you go to the right, okay, the more it gets costly, the longer it takes to resolve disputes, the more formal it is, the more complex it is, the more third parties get involved, and the more there's a potential to damage the relationship, and the more we argue about who's right and who's wrong, as opposed to trying to find practical solutions. And so that's why the SDRCC exists. The SDRCC exists because it believes in the left-hand side of this spectrum and trying to keep people as far to the left as they possibly can. Okay? And using mechanisms to the left to try and help resolve disputes. Now, one mechanism that they use a lot and they try to push a lot because they think it's a really great process is mediation. A lot of folks don't really understand what mediation is, so let me give you a quick explanation of what we mediators do to try to help people resolve disputes. Because people go see a mediator and they say, hey, you know, how's this person going to get me to resolve a dispute? I've already talked to the other side. I've already tried to get it resolved. I haven't been able to resolve it. Okay? Well, I'll tell you the secret to mediation. Okay? And you can use this with all of your friends. You could use it with your parents, friends, spouses, whatever. Here is the secret to mediation and how mediators get you to resolve disputes. There's two parts to it. The first part is people will very often, not always, very often do what is in their best interests. Sometimes people don't. Sometimes people smoke. They have that extra piece of chocolate. They don't go for the run when they should. They don't do what is in their best interest. But most of the time people will do that. And mediators are experts at helping people do that. Now, what do I mean by that? Let me tell you a story very quickly to help you understand what I mean by that. This is a story of a mediation I did about 15 years ago when I was just starting off as a mediator. And this was a dispute between two neighbors, a fence fight. The hedge was at the wrong place, or the fence was at the wrong place, or something like that. And a young couple was suing their neighbor, an elderly woman. Small lawsuit, about $30,000. And when this mediation started, it was clear to me that if ever it got in front of a judge, the young couple was going to lose. The law didn't favor them. Facts didn't favor them. I thought their lawyer had just made a mistake in starting the lawsuit. So we started the mediation, and we got to a point where I separated the parties. I put them in separate rooms and started chatting with them. And I had a chat with the young couple and their lawyer, and I started asking questions like, well, you know, when we were together, they said that if they get before a judge, they're going to be using this piece of evidence, or they've got an expert's report, a survey. What are you going to do when that happens? How are you going to deal with that? And we continued the discussion along those lines to the point where they started realizing that if ever it got in front of a judge, it wouldn't be very rosy for them. And so the demands that they were making to try to resolve that dispute started going down. And we got to a point after a lot of work where they were prepared, the young couple was prepared to abandon their lawsuit against the elderly woman for about $7,000, which coincidentally were their legal fees at the time. So And we'd been working really hard for a good part of an afternoon to try to resolve this. And it was pretty clear that if the elderly woman said no to this, it wouldn't settle and it would go to court. So I went and sat with the elderly woman and her lawyer, and I said, okay, well, what do you want to do? They're prepared to let you out of this lawsuit, but they want $7,000. What do you want to do? At that point, her lawyer got really angry, got really steamed. And he said something that went along the lines of, you know what? You haven't done anything wrong. Don't pay him a dime. By this point, she was starting to cry. And the reason she was crying and what was going on in her head, I thought was pretty evident given a whole bunch of things that she had said earlier and what had gone on in the mediation. So I said to her something that went along the lines of, you know what? Your lawyer is giving you some legal advice, and he's a good lawyer. If he says he thinks he can win this case, you need to take that very, very seriously. So let's presume he's right. There are no guarantees, but if you take this to a court, to a judge, it looks like you're going to be successful. Now here's what we need to talk about. We need to talk about, do you want to take this forward, go in front of a judge and win, or do you want to pay $7,000 to your neighbors? And she looked at me and she said, you know what? Every time I see my friends, every time I see my neighbors, all they want to talk about is this problem. Not these neighbors, because they don't talk to me, but my other neighbors. You know, this has been going on for about a year now, and he tells me it's going to take another year before we see a judge. Doesn't surprise me they spent $7,000. I spent at least that much in legal fees too. You know what? I'm 80 years old. I got more money than I'm ever going to be able to spend in the time I've got left. The money isn't that important to me. What's important to me is putting an end to this. Okay? I don't want you to tell them this, but I'd be prepared to pay them twice what they're asking if we could put an end to this right now. And then I'll never forget the words she uttered after that is, can I please pay the $7,000? And that's what she did. She paid $7,000. And that was the end of that lawsuit. We settled it. Now, I have two questions for you arising out of that story. I'm warning you, they're two very, very, very different questions. Question number one, was that fair? Was that a fair settlement? No. Why wasn't it fair?
But she did nothing, she still has to pay at the end.
Yeah, she did nothing wrong. Okay? She did nothing wrong. She would probably have won in court. Okay? What would have been fair is these silly people who had started the lawsuit maybe pay her legal fees, apologize, maybe take her out for dinner, right, to try to patch things up. That would have been fair. Now let me ask you a very different question. Was this settlement in her best interests? Yeah, why, some people are saying yes. Why was it in her best interests?
It was driving her crazy emotionally, and she was old, and she cannot handle with the stress and the conflict.
Yeah. What she did is she weighed on one side of the scale, okay, the advantages and disadvantages of going to court against the advantages and disadvantages of a settlement, and she picked whichever she saw as best, right? So she acted in her best interest. That, folks, is what mediation is all about, right? If you hire a guy like me to sit as an arbitrator and hear a case, and if you go to arbitration, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get somebody who's going to look at it and is going to come to a decision about who's right and who's wrong. And that's based on the law, somebody's idea of what's fair. You may disagree that that's fair, but it's somebody's perception of what's fair. Mediation is focused in on trying to find solutions that are in the best interests of people. Okay?
That's what I want you to do now.
Okay. Do we have time for it? I was going to skip it because I didn't think we had time.
No,
for it.
I want to do this. I want them to see. I want them to see what a mediation is in a real sports situation.
Okay. A quick one. We'll do a quick mediation for you. Okay.
Look at him.
All right. And
So you're gonna. Yeah, I think we need to do this. 35 minutes.
Okay. Okay, so you guys are going to be the... Okay, I'll be the mediator, imagine that. Okay, hi, my name is Roger, you are?
John.
John, and John, you're the claimant in this? The claimant in this? Okay, and you are?
Danny.
Danny, and you are?
The other guy.
The other guy.
Affected party.
Ah, he's an affected party, imagine that. We always thought he was affected, but that's... And you are?
Marie-Claude, I'm with the National Sport Organization.
Marie-Claude, okay, nice to meet you. Okay. Now, just so that you understand, typically at the beginning of a mediation, what will happen is the mediator will explain the process to you, will explain the process to everybody. And what that can look like is something like this. Okay, I'm glad that you've all agreed to...
I'm the affected party.
We're going to explain what the dispute is.
You'll understand in a second. You'll understand in a second, okay? I'm glad that we have this chance to talk about this. Before we get into this, I'd like to explain a little bit about what we're going to try to accomplish and how we're going to try to accomplish it. The idea behind today is to try to find something that's better for all three of you than what you've got right now. What you've got right now is the option of taking this case, bringing it before an arbitrator, and having the arbitrator decide it. And there are advantages to doing that, and there are disadvantages to doing that. One of the advantages is, well, of course, before an arbitrator, somebody wins, right? One of the disadvantages is before an arbitrator, somebody loses. And there's always a risk to going to arbitration. And there are other inconveniences to arbitration, like the cost, the time it's going to take, those kinds of things. What I'm going to be urging you to do in this process is to weigh, each of you, weigh on one side of the scale the advantages and disadvantages of going to arbitration, taking this case to arbitration, against the advantages and disadvantages of any solution we might come up with here today, and to pick whichever you see is best. So this isn't about making dumb decisions. This isn't about making bad decisions. This is about making the smart decisions, weighing on one side of the scale what you might get at arbitration, what might happen at arbitration, and what hopefully we can put on the table here today for you. My job in this process is to help you exchange whatever information you haven't already exchanged about this case. It's also part of my job to try and help you find something that hopefully all three of you can see is better than continuing, up through to the arbitration process. Okay? Now, there's a few basic rules to this process. The first is it's a confidential process. Okay? That means that whatever's said here today can't be shared with other folks that aren't involved in this process. Now, you, of course, have to report back to some folks in your organization, and you may have a significant other, or one of you may have a significant other that you have to refer back to. But other than that sort of reporting back, whatever is said here today ought not be shared with others. As well, it's a without prejudice process. And all that means is that if we don't get it resolved and it gets before an arbitrator, nobody can tell the arbitrator that somebody said something in this process. And that's so that we can all feel comfortable talking about this, saying, understanding that nobody's ever going to say to the arbitrator, hey, he or she said it in mediation. Okay? Now, in the course of this process, it's very, very normal for me to meet with one of you or two of you in the absence of the other or the others. We call that a caucus. The rule to the caucus is whatever you say to me when the other or others are not around, I'm going to assume that I cannot share it with the other or others unless you give me permission to do that. So if there's something you think I need to know, to help everybody resolve this, but you're not prepared to say it in front of the other or others, just say it to me in a caucus. I won't repeat it to the others without your permission. Okay?
Yep.
Any questions about that?
Nope.
Questions about this process? Nope. Pretty simple, right? Okay. The way this usually unfolds is I usually start with the claimant, and that'll be you, John. And I'm going to ask you to explain your perspective and what happened. And I'd ask the two of you just to listen and try to understand what John is saying. And the reason I'm going to be asking people to just listen and have one person talk one at a time is because it'll be much more efficient. And then once we've done that, once, John, you've had a chance to talk, then maybe, Marie-Claude, we can go over to you and you can give your perspective, and the rest of us will listen. And then, Danny, then maybe you can give us your perspective, and the rest of us will listen. And then after we've done that, we'll try to figure out what it is we have to talk about to resolve this, talk about those things, and hopefully at some point we're talking about something that everybody can see is better than going to arbitration. Okay? Any questions?
No.
Okay. John, I said that we'd start with you. So can you give us your perspective, an understanding of this from your perspective?
Sure, Roger. Thank you. I was not nominated to receive a senior card in the upcoming cycle, and I believe that I deserve it. I met the original carding criteria that was published on the website 1 year ago. This criteria was modified halfway through that time period, and I don't think that the modified criteria should be applied. I think that the original criteria should be applied, and then I should receive the senior card in the upcoming cycle. I exhausted the internal appeal process with my federation, and they did not find in my favor. They applied the modified criteria, and the other athlete that was up for the card received the card instead of me. After I exhausted this internal appeal process, I decided I still thought that I deserved this card. I need it. I need access to the services that are entitled with the card, and that is why I'm appealing to the SDRCC. And I hope that I will receive the card after this process.
Okay. All right. Thanks. And Marie-Claude, what's your perspective on this thing?
Well, we feel bad about the situation, and we realized we messed up at one point where when we actually had the change to the carding criteria, and those were deemed very legitimate changes because there were problems with the original ones which we did not anticipate. When we published the new criteria, we did put it on our website as soon as it was approved by the board. However, clerical error led to the wrong mailing list being used for distributing it to the athletes that it concerned. And very unfortunately, John was not on that mailing list and was not made aware of the new policy. And all sorts of other circumstances led to him not meeting the criteria, including the fact that we had added new competitions where he could qualify and gain points for the carding, and he was injured during that period, which we obviously could not anticipate when we adopted the new criteria. So it's a series of very unfortunate events. The NSO has to take responsibility for making that mistake of not communicating properly to the right people the change criteria. But we're stuck in that situation because there's only one card available. It was given to Danny, who we feel has met the entire modified criteria, and we feel extremely bad for John, but that's just the way things are.
Okay. Thanks, Marie-Claude. Where are you at in this, Danny?
Well, from my point of view, I mean, sure, it sucks for John. I mean, it sucks to be left out like that, but I mean, I did my due diligence. I went to the new competition. I met the new criteria, and the way it's been explained to me is if he gets the card, I lose mine. And I'm a student athlete. I can't, I need the funding. I need the support. I can't compete at a high level. I can't continue to do what I love if he gets my card. So I need that card.
Okay. Okay. Have there been any sort of proposals made to try to resolve this? Has anybody talked about any solutions here?
Can't see any right now.
You can't see any?
No.
Okay. Have any of you talked about or come up with any possibilities or thoughts?
I Actually, I was thinking that since that we were both wrestlers and both in the same weight class, that we could have that we could have a wrestle off and settle this appropriately.
Oh, so okay, a wrestle off. Well, what do you think about that, Danny?
I'd be more than happy to wrestle you anytime, anywhere. But to be honest, I think I've got this card. It's just not fair, right? Because if he wins the card. If I lose the card. There's nothing I can win other than pride, which I beat all the time.
So what you're saying, Danny, is when you look at this, a wrestle off is not as good for you as going to arbitration. You figure that you got a better shot at arbitration.
Even if I win in a wrestle off, I don't gain anything.
Okay. All right. Any other thoughts about what we can do to resolve this? Have any of you? Okay. Well, look. I said earlier that one option is for us to speak separately, right? To caucus. I'd like to just have a quick caucus with each of you. Okay. So and it doesn't matter who I go. Who goes first? I'll start with Danny. So now imagine that these two folks are out of the room. Okay, they're not here anymore. Okay, so sorry, John. John, I mean, I'm trying to get an understanding of what this means to you. I know what a card is, but where are you at in this in terms of what you need out of this?
Well, I need access to the services. It's not so much the funding, but I need physio. I got a bad shoulder. I need to have that looked after, and it's prohibitively expensive for me to chain that tree of my own. But if I had a card, I would be able to just use the CSC services to get what I need. Also, I don't have access to the training facilities and the coaches that I would need if I didn't have carding, because they're only available to carded athletes. So I need those services, and also if I get carded, I get a tax break from my province. So having the carding status benefits me in terms of the services I can get and the tax breaks that I'm entitled to.
Okay, so it's the services, it's the tax breaks that are really important to you.
Yeah, I'm working full time right now. I make enough money that I can support myself personally, but it's the expenses of being an athlete and the services that I would get if I work harder that are important to me.
Okay, and is any of this confidential? Can I share this with the others if I need to?
You can share this at your discretion, what you think is appropriate.
Okay, thanks. I'll go and have a chat with the others. Now imagine he disappears. She's still not there. Okay, Danny, I'm trying to understand from your perspective where you're at in all of this. And I mean, I know what a card is, but how important is the card to you? Where does it fit in?
Well, I'm a full-time student. I'm studying law, and so it's a lot of coursework. And I train a lot, and I'm away at competition a lot. So I can't work. I can't hold down a job because I'm just never available. So I can't support myself without the funding. I'm on the wrestling team at the university, right? So I mean, I can get physio and stuff there, but it's just I really need the money. And I don't see why the NSO can't just give John what he needs while giving me my card as well.
Okay, so you're saying that the money is what's really important to you.
Yep.
The services, the fact that the card gives you some tax breaks and that sort of thing, that's not as important to you.
Nah.
Not important at all?
Well, tax breaks are nice, but the service and stuff I get through my university anyway, so I don't really use the CSC.
Okay, now, is any of this confidential? Can I share some of this information with the others?
If you think it'll help, yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. And now imagine I'm coming to speak with Marie-Claude. Okay, Marie-Claude, how do you see these two athletes fitting in with your sport?
Well, they're both young and very talented, and I am upset right now that one of them risk not be able to continue in the sport if they don't get the support that they deserve. And
so what I'm hearing you say is you want to try and keep both of them.
I wish, I could.
Eh?
I wish I could do something, but our resources are very limited. Even to suggest that, we make up for that by putting out money to make up for the difference. We can't do that. Our association is too tight on money. And we don't have any loose budget for that.
Okay. Can I just ask you a question, because I don't know the answer to this? Is there any way that we can arrange things so that one gets the card to get the status and the other gets the money from the card?
Well, I suppose this is something I'd have to check with Sport Canada first.
Okay. If we could do that, and you could support both athletes, would you be interested in that?
Oh, I'm willing to do whatever they agree to do that's going to resolve the issue, and whatever works with our contribution agreement with Sport Canada. For sure.
Okay. Okay. All right. So we're running out of time. So I'm gonna cut it there. You can see, and we've accelerated things, right? A typical mediation would last a half day, maybe even a day. And information wouldn't come as quickly as this. But the solution, of course, is for him to give the card to him and the money to go to him, and they get 2 athletes. Everybody gets more, and he avoids the risk of going to arbitration. He avoids the risk of going to arbitration. Everybody winds up winning. All right? Now, that, folks, is what mediation is about. Mediators aren't going to tell you you're right, you're wrong. They aren't going to try to figure out who's right and who's wrong. Mediators are going to try to find practical solutions to the problem that everybody can see is better than going forward to arbitration. And the only way that people say yes to the solutions in mediation is if they all see them as better than taking the risk of going to arbitration. And that, in a nutshell, is what it's about, folks.
Okay. Do you think we have time? Do you think we have time to go to the form thing?
I want to do some Q&A.
Huh?
I want to do Q&A. Do you have time to do that? You have to be within 10 minutes. So.
Do you want to give them a choice of doing either or?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, which is very important, I did not create that scenario, one that it was wrestled into the whole law thing. That was all made up without my assistance. The second thing is that we have 2 other pieces of this presentation to share with you. One, which we think is very important, that's the question and answer portion. But Roger and Marie-Claude also prepared kind of a simulation. They wanted to have you go through the process. So now they've put it on me, which I'm going to put on you. You have to make a decision. You have to make a choice. So we can go in and have open question and answers, or we can have Roger and Marie-Claude take you through the actual forms. I need to hear from you. It wasn't rhetorical. I'm hearing Q&A. Let me see, by show of hands, Q&A. I like democracy. Hi, raise them high. Don't be shy. Marie-Claude, are you counting? All right. Keep them up. Keep them up. Brian, is it up or down, Brian? All right. All right. Forms. You can't vote twice, Erica.
I did it.
All right. It's looking like a Q&A, and so we'll go through the. Thank you. We'll go through the question and answer, because I think a lot of people probably do have questions, and it's important you get the information while we have these individuals here. So,
actually, if I just say something regarding the form, what we're going to do is we have given you a copy now, so you have a copy. It's on our website too. But I have slides there which proposes wording for the situation you just saw now, the mediation we just did. We were going to ask you to now pretend you're John and you want to apply to SDRCC with your carding dispute. How would you fill out the form? So the PowerPoint will be made available by AthleteScan. And you're welcome to call us at any time in the office. We have a toll-free number. You can call me if you get to the point where you have to do that. Sports Solutions is always very, very familiar with our form filing procedure, and they can help you too. Okay? So those who are interested in the form filling stuff, there's other options for you. Okay?
Perfect. All right, let's open up questions. And I know there must be some. Perfect. And I'm going to ask for your name and your sport, please.
Brenda Sailing. On the NSO, the appeals policy is 15 days within the decision that you weren't renominated. And then on the Sports Canada and the AAP, the same our NSO actually has this exact same appeal process as Sports Canada. So I was just wondering, theirs is also 15 days, so I'm not really sure from a sequence event. So I'm supposed to exhaust NSO first, so then after the decision from the NSO comes back and I still want to appeal, if I want to appeal it through Sports Canada, does that then kick in on that 15 days after the NSO's decision or from the original decision?
No, it kicks in after the last attempt to resolve the issue. So if you receive a, well, what's going to happen is, first of all, in the carding dispute, it gets a little complicated. I know particularly one case you have in mind, but there's a potential to have a dispute about your NSO not nominating you to Sport Canada. And that would be one issue you would need to deal with before you deal with Sport Canada. If your NSO nominates you to Sport Canada, whether voluntarily because they realized they made a mistake or because an arbitrator from SDRCC ordered them to do it, Sport Canada still has the possibility of looking at your file and say, look, even though your federation nominated you, we don't think you meet the criteria, and say no. And then there would be an appeal process before Sport Canada for that. So those are two. But if you go at them one at a time, you may have the internal appeal process at your federation. You may have an appeal before SDRCC, an appeal process within Sport Canada, and then you could even take Sport Canada before SDRCC. So there's a potential of 4 appeals. They would be consecutive, and the timelines normally should run from one decision being appealed to the next. So you don't have to do, if it's 15 days from the very first one, you can't expect that the 5 appeals or the 4 appeals are going to be done within 15 days. Okay? Is that good? Okay.
Hi, I'm Ryan, and I'm from the sport of life saving, very little known, and I actually have a funny question because it's similar to your little act previous. My NSO is in the process of reviewing and changing our appeals procedure. We have to be selecting a national team for the next world competition by early next summer. What's a reasonable amount of time to have that posted, that they should have it up for review and for the athletes to see?
You mean a draft policy?
Yes, sure. I'm sorry, I'm very brand new to this.
Well, first of all, I'm glad that there is a consultation process, a public consultation process in your federation to allow athletes to provide feedback, and I do hope that the athletes in your sport are going to take the time to read the policy and provide feedback.
We shall.
Okay, so good for you. You know, it's a good way to start, and if you think that the timeline for providing feedback doesn't fit with other time commitments or you know, travel your athletes may have, this is something that can be raised with the federation. I believe that they will understand that you have an interest in providing input into the policy, and that the timeline that they have offered are not congruent with the expectations on the athletes of being around the world for competitions. And hopefully, I don't know if it answers your question. Whether or not it's reasonable, I don't know, because it all depends on how much time you're willing to give in the evening or overnight to look at these things. Yeah.
Hi, Brian Johns from swimming. I have 2 shorter questions, I guess, for you. I'm just looking over the judo appeal policies here and comparing it to my own. What's considered a short I guess, initiating of the appeal process? I noticed that on his it's 15 days, on mine it's 7. And so I was wondering what would be considered to be too short.
Well, you know, I can't get into the I recommend this and I recommend that, because I'm not a lawyer, first of all. I have a phys ed degree, and I'm an administrator. But I just think that you have to figure out when you are faced with the decision of your NSO, how much time do you think is reasonable for you to digest the content of the decision, maybe consult Sports Solution or consult a lawyer or someone else, or talk to your coach, figure out whether or not you should appeal this. If you think that 7 days is too tight to do all this, then you go to your NSO, you say, look, 7 days, I mean, 7 days I think is not bad. One of the things is, it may be possible that because of the timelines, because we need to decide who's going to get on a plane on Saturday, if you wait your 7 days, you're not on the team. So it's the maximum length. So for you to aim at the 7th day, because it says 7 days, is risky. right? So it says it's within 7 days, but if you're ready to file on the third day, you file on the third day. If it's not reasonable for you to file on the 7th day, you either approach your federation and say, look, I don't think it's reasonable for athletes to have to make this decision. But in some cases, the 7th day won't even matter because you'll have to apply the next day if you want to be on the plane on a Saturday, right? So it's just a matter, if you are forced to do within 3 days, even if it's a dispute that's not urgent, it's a little tight. Because if you receive the decision on Thursday night, you open your email on Friday morning, you want to consult a lawyer or your coach, you get onto Sunday, and Sunday our office is not open, but please file on Saturday or Sunday, right, if you want to. We're going to pick up on Monday, but your 3 days is up on Monday morning, and you haven't talked to a lawyer yet. So 3 days is very short. 7 is not bad. 15 is good, but 15 may not be useful if you need a decision within 3 days.
I think maybe part of that as well for Brian and for all athletes rep is to understand the rationale behind why the NSO would make it 7 versus 15. So there may be time constraints or timelines that they have to meet. So instead of saying, well, hey, mine is too short, you need to understand the rationale behind why they've made that decision.
Yeah.
Yep. Fiona, coming over there.
Fiona McKee, Badminton. We've had issues with teams not being chosen until, say, a month or even less before an event, like a big event like Commonwealth Games or Olympics, Pan Ams. And the problem is for certain appeal processes, there's no way you can even appeal because you couldn't make it on the team. And I'm just wondering, are there any sort of ways to deal with this, to be prepared beforehand, or are there things like that can rush it, or do you put things on priority?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Because that's been an issue in the past from lots of athletes, just saying we don't have time to actually get on that plane, like you said.
Well, I'll just give you a quick example of something that happened prior to Beijing, where we received a request at 2:15 in the afternoon, and we needed this decision before midnight because the horse of the athlete was in Germany and needed to be quarantined before 9 o'clock Germany time, but she had a 3-hour drive to get her to the quarantine place. So, we did the case and at midnight she had a decision. So that's what the courts can't give you is, we're going to do it now. If you need a decision in 2 hours, we're going to give you a decision in 2 hours. The quicker we do things, of course, the more we risk, breaching some rules of natural justice, giving you time to prepare your case and so on. But is it better for you to have a decision in 3 hours than no decision at all? And that's where we have to work it out.
Can you deal with the states too, if you have issues, or is that a totally different group?
What do you mean the state?
Well, because we were thinking about doing an appeal with a team made with the states, between Canada and the states, because we can only send one from Pan Am.
No. No, we have jurisdiction over national sport organization and multi-sport organization. Court of arbitration, maybe the Court of Arbitration. Michael, do you know anything about this?
Yeah, I haven't come across that before where we have to do a dispute with like internationally, right? I mean, outside of an actually event, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think the closest thing would be the Court of Arbitration in Lausanne. Yeah.
Go ahead.
My name is Viviane Forêt. I'm a blind skier. I have a question concerning karting. I have a new guide this season, so that means my older guide was carded last season. I never ski with the new guide yet, because obviously I have a cast, and I was wondering who got the card in that case.
That sounds like a question for the karting. Bob, do you want to take a crack at that? Bob Price?
We've had a couple of cases in the past where there have been changes in guides. And if the guide is not working with the athlete, regardless of the fact that they've met the carding criteria, we don't card that guide. The NSO has the opportunity to find a new guide for the athlete and put a program together for that guide and athlete. And then we take a look at the new guide from the point of time that they are working with that athlete. Does that answer your question?
So basically no guide are carded right now?
If the NSO has informed us that the guide is no longer working with you, it would be my understanding that we've discontinued carding for that athlete. That have to know the specifics and check on our files.
Does the new guide have to compete or do anything? Because my new guide has been nominated to guide me, but we just talk over the phone.
Sorry, maybe I don't want to cut you off, but maybe you and Bob can meet over a Coke or coffee and maybe ask him a few more questions. We have about 7 minutes left. And thank you, though. Thanks, Bob.
This is just a comment to your statement. Our NSO we just reviewed our appeals policy, and we have adapted the rapid appeals policy, and it's something that if any of you are on athletes' councils and stuff, you might want to be looking into, because when you're on tour, going to an outside body can be difficult on a timeline. So getting those things settled within your NSO might even make things a little quicker.
Nicole, I know you had a question, so last question. Do you need the microphone?
I think for the reporter, I don't need one, but I would use one. I recently went through the whole spiel with CDR-SCC.
SDRCC.
Or SDRCC.
Close. You have the right letters.
It was a long night last night. Anyways, I went through and I went all the way through arbitration. And I worked with Sports Solution, and those guys did like an amazing job with me. My question that I have is, I'm looking over what the decision was again, and I'm seeing that it's stated by the arbitrator that,
This is not an appeal process, just so we're clear, right? Okay.
No, so what you guys just took us through, like the appeal, and then you go through mediation, that doesn't work, and then the last thing is arbitration, where you have like a win versus no win. And while the arbitrator scolded my NSO, his statement was, in the present case, I choose not to rule on whether procedure has been violated. Now, what's the purpose of the arbitrator if they're not going to make the decision? Because in my case, he actually shot it back to my NSO. And so it leads me to have, like, how are you evaluating the effectiveness of arbitrators? And what's the point of going to an arbitrator if they're not going to make the decisions?
Can I? Let me jump in on that one. And by the way, I don't work as an arbitrator for the SDRCC, so I'll jump on the arbitrators for a second. You know what? I am amazed at the people that have been willing to give their time to be arbitrators and mediators as well. I got to meet all of these folks about a year ago. And you have amongst the best arbitrators in this country on this panel. Now, and it's the same thing with the mediators. You have folks, and by the way, the fees that we get certainly are not the fees that we typically get for the work that we do. And whenever you get a phone call from Marie-Claude, it's not Marie-Claude saying, I've got a case for you, can you do it next month or next year or whatever, which is the way most of our schedules are. It's, can you do it this afternoon? And it's really, really wild. What I will say to you about the experience that you've had is that the reason that 97% of lawsuits settle and most people don't wind up going to arbitration is that very often you wind up getting a result that you didn't expect. And that's why mediation exists in the process. The law is a blunt instrument. It really is a blunt instrument, and you'll find that when I was a litigation lawyer, I used to be a litigation lawyer. I used to sue nice folks like you. And you know what? I won a whole bunch of cases that I shouldn't have won. And I lost some cases that, I thought I shouldn't have lost. And no self-respecting lawyer will tell you that you have a 100% chance of success. They'll give you got a 75% chance if you got an amazing case. A lot of them will just tell you 50-50. And, whenever you read a case, a decision of a judge or an arbitrator, and you look at it and you say, oh, crap. I wouldn't have decided it that way, and I've read a whole bunch of like that. That's just the reality of litigation, and I wish I could have a better answer for you, other than they're an amazing bunch of arbitrators, and you're not going to half of the time you're not going to like their decisions.
I'm okay with that. I guess the fact was I didn't get a decision, yay or nay. It was just a decision that we're going to let your NSO decide. And I feel like if you read through, because anyone can go through it, you can read the dispute. And there are some arbitrators that are in there, and they will make a decision. They'll make the tough decisions. And then there's some arbitrators that kind of pussycat around it. And so how do you, like, if this is our efficient way of having disputes settled, at the other end, even though they're amazing people, we want to ensure that we're having, like, high efficacy, I guess, or really, like, a strong resolution in there and not something that's, like...
Yeah, and you know what? You're absolutely right. That's what everybody wants. And the reality of it is sometimes the law will require a result that people don't like, and sometimes the result has got to be that the arbitrator comes down with that kind of a decision.
I think, point taken. Mary Claude is here. I'm here from our board, and that's something that I'll have her revisit again. We're down to the last 2 minutes, and I know you probably have more questions. And Mary Claude, you're here for a while, are you?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm here all weekend. If there are questions that we can answer for you, I'll be more than happy to do that. I would say a few things just in closing. One, thank you, Roger, and thank you, Mary Claude, for being here this afternoon, and John, and where'd they go? Dan, for doing your job and then leaving. That's wonderful. But as athletes reps, maybe we should try to take this away. Yeah. You don't want to wait until, there's a dispute and then you're scrambling or your athletes are scrambling. I think it may be worthwhile for you as reps to have a little bit of a cheat sheet in terms of here are the steps. If there's a dispute, A, B, C, D, boom, boom, right to E or F or whatever it is, Z, whatever it takes, just so you can have that.
Do you guys have that though? Like, do you have that something like a template like that available?
If Athletes Can has that? Or if SDRs? I don't know. We don't have that on our... You should. You should have that accessible to you so you can find out where the athletes find. And finally, I'll say this. When I was doing these cases with SDRCC, athletes would come in an emotional state. They'd be upset. They'd be horrified. I didn't make the team or whatever. So I want to fight this. I want to arbitrate it. I deserve it, like John was saying. I deserve this card, whatever. You as athlete reps, I believe, have a responsibility, not only to provide the information, but to almost keep your teammates, each other in check. You've got to be the voice of reason. And so if you are aware that your teammate or colleague, as the case may be, are acting on that emotions, you need to help them take a step back, even within the short time frame, because I realize some of these things are time sensitive, but it's incumbent upon you to do that. So thank you very much for your time. Ashley, where are you? Okay. And thank you very much, guys. Now you can clap. Yeah.